is on.
My screen is on.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Commercial Credit and Collections Conference. We had a bit of a slight delay there in starting. Apologies for that. The wonders of technology and the irony, actually, of technology and us talking about that in our next session, technology and credit management. I just want to start by saying hello. My name's Colin White. I'm from Credit Connect Media. We've organised the event today. And talking of technology, I'm going to now talk you through, before we get started, the screen that we've got in front of you, so you can interact with us today as much as you can. So in the top left-hand corner of your screen, you can see an I for information button. That's got information on our agenda. Second part, crucial part, is the speech bubble. That's basically, you press that and you can ask questions to our panel and chair for today. So any questions you've got, please send them through. We'll have a look at that. If we can't answer them, we're doing an event review roundup online next week, article which will review that. Then after, we'll also be asking, polls throughout this session. So again, we'd love your feedback on that. If we've got time, we might talk about those polls really briefly, but if not, we'll share those results next with you online. We've also got information on our speakers and their profiles. Have a look at that. Information on the sponsor of this session, which is Cedar Rose. So please have a click on that, and also click on the file button, which gives you more downloadable information about Cedar Rose, some of the research they've done, data, and a bit of information about Credit Connect and our future events. So have a look at that. But I'll stop talking for now, and we'll hand you over to the chair for this session, Ian Leslie from Aon Credit Solutions. He's going to chair the session, introduce our panelists, and then go through the discussion with them. So Ian, if I can hand over to you, that'd be great.
Yep, thanks, Colin. Hello again. For those of you on the first session, or have been all the sessions today, you probably know who I am. But for those of you who are logging in, and this is the first session you're catching today, as Colin said, my name's Ian Leslie, Head of Business Development at Aon within their Credit Solutions department based here in the UK. And first and foremost, thank you all for attending this virtual conference today. As Colin said, ironically, we're talking about technology and credit management, and similar to the first session, I'm glad to say I've got a panel of experts that are going to be doing all the analysis and opinions rather than having to be on me. So we've got Subu, Leanne, Guy, Brian, and Nick, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves now. So Leanne, if it's okay, can I start with you?
Yeah, afternoon all. I look after the accounts receivable and data team for BAE Systems, so a large multinational defence contractor. Some of the major customers we have, you'd know, as your government agencies, MODs. So we're not the most traditional when it comes to credit management. So we actually have quite a different approach to things. We have a fairly medium-sized team, so there's about 45 in the team at the moment, and we're currently going through quite a big transformation journey involving robotics, automation, different credit management software. So we've got a lot going on in-house at the moment. Myself, I've got a bit of a background in various finance disciplines, lots of project management and things, but tackled credit management over the last 2 years, and I think I may have found my forte finally. So yes, one of those things. But yeah, I'm glad to be here today and open to any questions, really.
Cool, thank you. Glad to have you. Subu, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, everybody. So myself, Subbu, I take care of credit and business risk solution sales for Cedar Rose. A brief on Cedar Rose. We are an organization who are into providing company credit reports to our clients. We have been operating across the world. So during one of the topic today we are covering also is on the credit risk management. So our data reports are kind of helping our credit teams to understand the client's background and take their credit decisioning. So hope to look forward to interacting with you guys and providing a bit of an overview of what we do, and also answer some of the queries that might come along the way.
Thanks, Subu. Thanks for that. Guy, you go next, mate.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Guy Thompson, Head of Credit Risk for
EMEA, and it says China, but it's actually the whole of APAC, where it will be as of a week on Friday, when we acquire a business which will give us a much larger footprint in Asia. Been with Sun for 16 years, and I'm the business process owner for our credit and collections solutions. So that's probably one of the reasons why Colin asked me to come on today. I have 8 full-time credit managers scattered around the globe, and perhaps about 40 collection staff across the whole of the globe as well. So Sun Chemical, for those of you who don't know us, if you're not in the printing industry, I quite understand, but because we make ink and pigments. We're the world's largest manufacturer of pigments and printing ink. So for pigment side is things like the base paint for all your nice BMW and Mercedes motor cars, amongst others. We also use cosmetic grade pigments for makeup and lipsticks and mascaras and that sort of thing. So I know, Nick, you're obviously a big user of our products. Yeah, looking forward to being on this long distance, coming to you from down in my dungeon just outside Frankfurt, where outside it is 38 degrees and it's only slightly cooler here. Nick, I'm very envious of you being able to wear a pullover. I've got a ventilator.
Got mine this year.
We didn't even get to the first question before you guys kicked off. I knew that the 2 sessions, this was the one I was going to have to manage. So, Brian, I'll let you do your introduction.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Lewis. I'm pleased to have the designation FCIM behind my name, and I'm credit manager for a company called CPI Mortars. Previously with Hanson Quarry Products Europe, so quite experienced in the construction industry, and with relation to CPI Mortars, you may see our products on building sites. They're basically tin cans on stilts. We call them silos, where our product goes into, and we supply people working on the building sites with the product. Challenges facing us at the moment within the industry are certainly material shortages, not to mention shortages in transport as well. Apart from that, when I do get time off to myself, I do like to get bike out and do some cycling.
Cool, thanks for that. And last but no means least, Nick.
Good afternoon, saving the best till last. Thanks, Ian. So my name is Nick King, again, a fellow of the Institute of Credit Management. I've been in the credit industry more years than I care to mention, but 35 plus years, working for some major corporations such as Travis Perkins, Brightpoint, Agility Logistics. And most of that time has been looking at transformation of the order to cash process in these organizations. So that's looking at people, process, and my forte, which is what I love, which is systems, which is why I'm really going to enjoy talking on this session about technology and how best to use it within the credit industry. Know most of the people on this panel, as you can probably tell by some of the banter. Love the job that I do, and really looking forward to this session. So thank you, Ian.
It's all right. Cool. Okay, well, look, we'll get straight into the questions. I'm going to go start with yourself, Nick. Can you give us your thoughts on how businesses, and in particular your business, has adapted to change in the past year, and how you think that will impact your company and team moving forward?
Yeah, so I think this certainly this pandemic has put us all in a different light. I think we all started off thinking in the early part that there wasn't going to be much change. The fact that we were all having to work from home, I think the longer it's gone on, it's brought out some new skill sets of people. I think a lot of us as credit managers we were always thinking about technology. And I think we've kind of maybe stepped up the mark around technology. I think also what it has done, it has allowed credit managers to approach their FDs and their companies to get things installed that maybe was a bit more of a fight, and maybe not being able to get in place in previous years, or probably not if we hadn't had the pandemic. So I think So technology, and I know we're going to go into it a bit more on this session, I think technology has taken a big step forward, but also I think it's the software houses and the technology companies, I think, have started thinking about it and realizing that actually there's a big market here and there's a lot more to do. So I think that's a big change. Working from home obviously has been a big change as well. I think people realize that actually you can collect money, you don't need to sit in an office. From my point of view, we talk about Zoom and Teams and what have you, and I know Brian and Guy have been involved in a session where we talked about customer visits. Well, we haven't been able to do customer visits, but we've been able to do Zoom visits, and people, I found, customers have been more acceptable to having a Zoom call than if you ring them up and ask them to come down and see them and have a discussion with them. So I think the whole mindset of credit and the use of technology has completely changed in the last 18 months. And I think we're only just touching the iceberg, and I'm sure we'll touch some of the areas today. And I could talk for hours on this, but yeah, I think we've only just touched the iceberg on the technology available.
Yeah, I agree. Leanne, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think in the industry where we are fortunate that COVID actually in itself hasn't had a massive impact on our credit management. What it has done, though, is had a big impact on how our team operate. So as Nick has said, working from home, changing working practices, doing things like office stand-ups, working out how we would do them from a remote environment, and making sure really from a people perspective, the team remained as a good, solid team. So we've adapted quite a few of our working practices around team management and ways of working. But as I say, unfortunately, we are one of the industries that thankfully COVID didn't have a big impact on our actual credit. But what it has done is changed how we operate quite a lot. And some of that is what's kicked off quite a big automation journey for us, so that we can focus a lot more on the people side of things. So yeah, there's definitely lots of change coming across all industries, I think.
Yeah. Agree. Certainly echo some of those comments.
I think probably something I probably wanted to mention was, I think this whole thing has, and Leanne hit the nail on the head there, is about automation. I think people have looked at automation because they don't have the people in the office. They don't have people sitting behind desks, and automation becomes more and more important, which is great because it means the people who are working from home can add value by doing things that they perhaps didn't do or get the time to do before. Because now the automation is taking over, but for the better, I would think, not for the worse.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Guy, I'm going to come across to you, obviously in the dungeon, as you called it. I mean, how have you found in terms of the adapting to change over the last 12, 18 months?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's awfully kind that the coronavirus decided to stay dormant until the 21st century. If it had happened, imagine if it had happened in the 1980s. People have been taking their laptops or their desktops home. Desktops today aren't much bigger than laptops. You imagine having to schlep your sort of 40-kilo desktop unit back home, and then if you had to go into the office, take it back again, doing it on your landline telephone. Because you didn't have a mobile phone, or certainly didn't have voice over internet protocol and all that sort of thing. It's happening now. It hasn't had the disaster effect that we all thought it probably would. I can remember when this thing all kicked off, I was having daily meetings with the rest of the Treasury team, worried about how to do this. Were our customers going to be able to pay us? Would we be able to do collections? Would we be able to access all of our stuff on home networks? Answer: home networks probably quicker and safer and more secure than the company network. But anyway, that's another thing. So we have adapted. Nick, I think you made a great point about visits with customers. Going forward, I think because it's quite possible our customers aren't going to be where we expect them to be, which is in their offices or in their factories. They're going to be working from home in the future. I think developing the skills of holding meetings like these, just like we're doing now, but with our customers, and being able to spend some quality time with them. I don't mean for 1 minute that the face-to-face meeting is gone, but I think we'll be doing less of them. simply because we've all learned we can be a lot more efficient and enjoy our work a lot more doing it this way. So I think that's the change. And also, I think people never thought that shared services would work if you weren't all in one place. Yeah, and that's been proved to be a nonsense.
Yep, for the better as well. I personally feel.
Yep.
Brian, pain of going forth, but if there's anything you want to add,
I would endorse everything that's been said. The other thing that has come out of it, from a business viewpoint, is that the credit management teams have earned so much more respect from the higher management and also the sales forces. They're now seeing what we do, and in many cases how we do it, and also certainly in my organisations, they've been blown away in many ways by the level of contact with our customers that we have. A salesperson will talk to a buyer. We're talking to FDs and MDs, which even some of our co-directors don't get to that level. So the contracts managers, etc. So the level of contact and access we have, and our knowledge of our customers too, is something that's benefited the whole of the business-wide, and that's something that I think has raised the profile of the credit management teams in whatever organisation you're in.
Yeah, and do you see that continuing kind of post-pandemic?
The business would be foolish to lose that now. And certainly in my organisation, they see credit as a sales function, but not as a finance function. And I think there's a big step now from people going from seeing credit as a back office function to very much we're a front office function. We're there with everybody else, and we are a customer facing department.
Yep, completely agree. Subu, anything you want to add from your side?
Yeah, so for me, the change I could sum up with one of the WhatsApp that I came across, right? So there was this question about what was responsible for you to adopt digitization. Is it the CEO? Is it the chief digital officer? Is it the pandemic? So that summed up quite well for us, because the digitization, which was a conversation in every boardroom, took years to happen, but the pandemic fast-tracked that, and it brought from years to months to, I think I would say, quarters, right? So that's how the change happened. And good to see, I think, from the panel experts also, is how we are fast adopting to it. And today, this is the kind of a way forward we are hearing from my clients as well. So it's going to be a hybrid. It's not going to be just the more of what we used to do earlier. We are going to depend on technology. We are going to depend on some of the innovative ways to actually get the same things done through the technology and through some of other means to actually gather the data and the information. So that's how I have heard from my clients as well.
Yeah, and then picking on what that Nick said about about people being more receptive to the different methods of communication now. I think that's the big shift change, because if one business had tried to do what everybody has done obviously throughout the pandemic on their own, like their clients, their kind of partner suppliers wouldn't have been as receptive, but because we all kind of got thrown into the same position, and like you said, we've moved on massively in a very short period of time. Keeping with yourself, Subu, so what are the tech trends that you've seen over the last 12, 18 months in the credit management process?
Yeah, so the good thing that we have seen is I think that digitization has become the common theme across all the customers that I'm kind of interacting with. So under the digitization kind of an umbrella, you are seeing a lot of this AI-driven analytical models and the adoption. Because what's happening today is you have to take some decision. You don't need much of an manual interventions there, which is what, with the availability of the data, either through your own internal data or availability of the external data that is available outside, you can run your AI technologies to come up with the decision. The second one, surely what we are seeing is the RPA, the robotic process automation. So there were a lot of silos that was existing in any organization, and you needed the teams, the individuals to sit in front of the laptops to gather the details from system A and put it into the system B. That's where the bots are coming into play, and they are able to do this. So this is kind of the trend that we are seeing, and surely underneath to all of this is actually the data points. So what we are also, because of the explosion of data and with the kind of access also is improving. Today, there are a lot of data that are available for the companies to consume. So based on this, there are this kind of new innovations that we are seeing both in the RPI and AI technologies.
Cool, thanks for that. And not just because you mentioned the word silo, but because I want to make sure I keep it nice and fair in terms of order. But Brian, coming across to you in terms of thoughts on tech trends.
Yeah, obviously, what's already been said, I would endorse. I just think going back to how this all started and how everybody reacted. I mean, our IT department said if we had to plan for what happened, it would take us 2 years. They did it in 2 weeks, and the fact that we're finding new ways of doing the ways of working has been tremendous for everybody. And as Nick alluded to, I think we've only just scraped the iceberg in terms of what's available to us, and also in discussions I've had with some CRA providers recently. They're just starting to develop new tools and ways of operating for us as well, which will open up all sorts of doors in terms of what they give to us. I think the one thing nobody's touched about, because all the digitalisation, all the bots and everything else is absolutely wonderful, it's actually the bottom line cost to it and what we can afford, and that will still be the driver. It's great having the wish list, but reality is, what's it going to cost us?
Yeah, agree. And same question, but maybe a different kind of slant on it. But Leanne, do you think there's a risk that when things do open up and go back to some level of normality, that all the advancements that we've made, there's a risk that because people are so craving going back to normal, that we lose some of the benefits that we've had working the way we've been working?
I'd like to think not. I think a lot of the technology and things that we are putting in place now, as we've touched upon, is costly. It would be, from a financial point of view, it would be dire to go backwards. I think some of the ways of working, potentially how much people work from home and things may change, and that'll be sometimes down to human nature craving that sort of office environment after so long. But actually the technology we use, I'd like to think not. I think a lot of businesses now are looking at going down portal routes of invoicing through portals, receipting invoicing through portals, and a lot of that, which is obviously impacting our credit management, I think is here to stay. The days of sending invoices in the post and picking up the phone, I think are slowly dying off.
Yep. Yeah. Thank God on some of those. Nick, any thoughts on that at all, mate?
Yeah, I think what this whole pandemic thing has done, I think a lot of this API, robotics, and that was in people's roadmaps and software companies and CRA's roadmaps. I think all it's done is it's escalated it and brought it forward a lot quicker. I think we would have got there, but I think it would have been over a longer period of time. I think we've been able to pull a lot of this stuff forward, and it's very, very interesting. But Leanne, I don't think we'll go back. It'd be awful to think that we'll go backwards, because I think we were always going forward. We were just doing it very slowly. I think we've just kind of moved things forward a bit faster. So I don't think we will go back. I think also what it's done is it's made people look at their processes and workflows, automated workflows, and focus a bit more on their processes and getting their processes correct. Because, when you're sitting at home and you're sitting in sitting in your own office or in your own bedroom doing it, and you're not sitting in an office with a bunch of people where, some things can get hidden. Now having a good process is vital, because people are on their own and they need to be able to deal with things, and you need to know that the systems are working correctly because these people are on their own. So I think it's done a great thing for technology.
Yeah. Completely agree. Before I head on to the next question, I just wanted to remind anybody who's listening that you can ask questions. So there is as Colin was saying, there is I think there's a speech bubble, a question button you can use to ask, so do feel free to do that. We'll pick up questions at the end, but feel free to send them through as we go on, and if we get a chance at the end, we'll try and answer as many as we can. So Guy, coming back to yourself with the next question, what role does data play in the credit management function, and what are the factors to be aware of when aligning with the right data partner?
Data. Is data important? Yes, it's our bread and butter, isn't it? I mean, I think, you know, talking about what the others have mentioned earlier, that what we do has become much more visible, and what we've been able to give to our leadership is information. You know, we have up-to-date information on the customers. We talk to them on a more regular basis. We have interchange. We have information from credit reference agencies. We have information from credit insurers, and we then become the people that now the business is turning to us and saying, you know, what do you know about this? Because they are blind. They aren't doing the site visits, so the salespeople aren't having that sort of slightly larger version of the water cooler discussion with somebody because they're on site. They are sitting there and they're going, are they paying? You know, what's happening? What do you know? What can you see? And we're able to share lots of information. In terms of trends, I think that for us, one of the big things is getting all this information filtering into one place, so that we can take this all these different strands, feed them into our own, you know, scorecards or whatever, and get us a living, breathing view on how the customer is performing. So, you know, and your question, you know, in terms of data provision, there are lots of there is an awful lot of data out there. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody has all of it. But and it's frustrating that you know, you're used to having a certain level of data working in certain parts of the more civilized world, and then you have to deal in parts of the world where data is almost unavailable or in a form which doesn't really help, and therefore you need to find them the specialist for that particular region, and say, you know, what do you know about this region? I'm trying to work. You know, we're moving into the Asian market in a big way, you know, in 13 days time, cracky. And this is a market we don't know. And therefore because there isn't one single provider. You end up talking to, you may have a main supplier for data, but then you reach out to the specialists in regions, and don't be afraid. And I think, you know, as what Nick said right at the beginning, our profile within our own organizations has been raised up because of this pandemic. And therefore, if we say, you know, I need to have information about this particular market, and the only person who can give me that is X, they're not going to turn around and say, but we're already spending, you know, X $100,000 a year with Y. Why do you need X? And it says, because they've got the information that I need, and it's not just the information that I need. It's the information that you guys need, and to be able to give you the level of support that we've been giving you throughout the last 18 months or so, then we need to do that. And there's much less pushback now.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you guys talk about that kind of shift in the way in which credit management as a team is perceived. So, Brian, coming across to you with the same question around the role of data, but specifically pick on the points you mentioned earlier around moving to be more front of house, I think you called it, and more of a sales function, a finance function.
Yeah, very much agree with what Guy said, and the fact that we have access to data is some of the things that you can't get externally from CRA providers, and that's because of our contacts and our relationships with the customers. For example, getting MA information from them is easier if you have a relationship, and the customer's likely to share that information more willingly with you if they realize you are important to their business as well. So having those contacts, again, routes to getting data, and also being able to show to the management team, as Guy said, we need access to this data to provide a reasoned, sound, logical judgment to the decision you're going to make on the business. And again, I agree with what's been said. You can't get it all in one place either. There's no one-stop shop for all of this. You do have to go hunting and fishing for it, and you have to use your contacts. And I mean, sometimes that's not just the customer or your sales team. It's going to your industry contacts as well, and picking their brains and vice versa.
Yep. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Nick, anything you want to add in terms of the role of data and the factors that you might be or need to take into account when looking at a data partner?
Yeah, I think, Guy and Brian hit the nail on the head. I mean, data's always been important for the credit manager. We've always kind of relied on credit reference agencies and some of the internal information that we've got. But I think we have come into our fore. Things that I've noticed in the last 18 months is, where there's been data warehouses and data cubes that the sales guys and the marketing guys, have been allowed to get a license for and been able to put it in there. All of a sudden, we've now ended up with credit management data cubes, where we're pulling in from sales, we're pulling in from marketing, and we're able to go out with a dashboard now to the business, which was always a bit of a fight before. You could get maybe a dashboard on maybe the collection system, but you weren't being able to put in a whole lot of other ones to make decisions on customers. And I think Brian kind of alluded to it. It's not about just electronic data. It's about also data that you can get from your industry about either an industry or a particular customer or something like that. That what I call the soft data that needs to go into these kind of information cubes and dashboards. So I think we've come into our fore and being able to get to the warehouses, the data warehouses and data cubes, and run those reports and integrate them into our collections or risk management systems has become big in the last kind of 18 months, I believe.
Cool, thanks for that. And sticking with that topic, but changing it very slightly, Leanne, in terms of the pandemic and the knock-on effect that's had to some of the standard information that credit managers would go to, I'm thinking, financials being the obvious one of something that's been impacted over the last kind of 12, 18 months. Do you think what the information you're looking for now has changed from what it was maybe a year and a half ago?
I think we'll always focus on financials, but there's additional factors that we're adding to it. I think it depends as well on the industry, I think, and it depends on how the industries are changing and how much they've been impacted by this pandemic, and obviously other economic things that are ongoing as well. I think we, in particular at the moment, we're focusing on more real-time data, whereas before we would use reports that were documented. Now we're looking at daily updates. So we're looking for a reference agency who can provide us that data at the click of a button rather than having to wait for reports to be generated. Some of that, it depends on where you're dealing. If we're looking at the APAC region, things sometimes they aren't that quick, and we've got to, you've got to deal with what you've got. But it is utilising that, using your sales force more. The guys on the ground who are running those teams to see what sort of information they're gathering when they're in production, when they're in the manufacturing environment and dealing with buyers. So it is, I think, a case of having to pull in lots of sources of data now. But I personally think financial data will always be key, really, and it'll be at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
Just to point that, Ian, as well, on what Leanne was saying there. One of the issues they have with the credit reference agencies and companies' house is the age of the data. It's simply too old for making decisions today. And for those of us who insure, then we'll be seeing that insurance companies are not writing cover because the accounts are too old, and they're insisting seeing 2020 financials or Q1 MAs to put retain cover or get new applications approved properly. So the age of the financial data is crucial, and hence comes back to those contacts that Nick, I and Guy were talking about earlier on. Being able to go to your customer and say, look, guys, you've got to help us help you by giving us this information as well.
But I think sorry, Ian.
No,
go on. I think that's where things have changed, because now you, rather than jumping in a car and driving down to a customer, you arrange a Zoom call with your customer, and he shares a screen and he shares his account details with you, which may have been a bit of a struggle before, or he put it off, and now it's a lot easier. I think customers are now more willing to share that data. I don't know why, because it seems to be they want to do it over internet, they want to do it over Zoom, than they did than sending them in the post or going down and sitting there. So I definitely think, what Guy and Brian and Leanna just said, with the technology, with Zoom and Teams and everything, that's brought that all together. And we're getting that more information than we got before.
historical data, you can imagine, as people start filing their 2020 accounts, well, it could just be, it's good to be alive. Could be was there. we made it through 2020 and can file everything. But I mean, how on earth we're supposed to build 2020 numbers into our models? So it's Nick's right. I mean, maybe it's because people are sitting at home with a bottle of white wine on the corner of the desk, and they are more willing to share information with you than they would do if you're sitting in their offices at 11 o'clock in the morning. But I think we're all in the same boat. This is not like a recession like any other that any of us have gone through. This has affected the entire global market, and therefore, even if you're in food and pharma, which for us, have stayed very strong, and also even in publications where the desire for information has meant that people have bought newspapers again, or the fact that they're sitting at home and have time to read them. I don't know, but everybody's been affected by this, and therefore everybody is in the same boat about wanting to know what the hell is going on, and therefore it's they are more prepared, I think, to share information with us, through this medium that we're doing today. As Nick said, just throwing up the stuff that they put together for their banks or for their lenders or whatever, and sharing that with us. So it's changed us completely.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a topic that came up on the first session this morning, which is no surprise because it's a hot topic in general. Subu, any thoughts in terms of the data and what we've just been talking about now around information?
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting topic, as you said. I think we can go on hours on this. But what I've also heard and from my clients, and what we are hearing is, we have established that the data is the new oil. I think that's something everybody understands. But what we are also realizing is it's actually a diamond. So for the diamond to be really kind of called as diamond, it needs to be polished and it needs to be brought into a particular kind of a way. And this can happen from somebody who's actually understands the data and who can really appreciate the value of it. And people here sitting, and what we also come across is, you might have the information, but you want it in a particular format, the particular way, and the access is very important. It might be lying. If it is not available to me in a click of a button, it's useless to me. So how do we ensure that these kind of things are happening, and it's kind of very much established into the workflow, and the process of the organization is very critical. Some of the things we talked about is the transformation, digitization and all. For this to really see the value and the fruits of it, the data and this workflow has to be well established. So very interesting. And I think what we also, I think as an organization also, we also believe and we strive is exactly to ensure that how do we keep this data made available at a single place and in the kind of a format that my clients are very comfortable with, because you're dealing with multiple countries, multiple languages is what you come across, and multiple kind of the formats of the financials. So one is for the outside world, one is for internal, one is for what is to be for the VAT or taxation. So all these varieties are there, but you as a decision maker are looking for that kind of one common format that I'm used to and I'm kind of very comfortable to make my decision. So that's what I think we are talking about, and surely with some of the developments we are seeing, we are and more companies are providing that as well.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And data is the new oil. There you go. There's the takeaway from the session. So I think we've got about time for one last question. So Leanne, I'm going to start with you on this one. What is the future for credit management technology, and can you foresee any new channels being created outside what already exists?
I think really to pick up on some points that we've probably all touched upon, I think those that aren't on the automation, robotics, RPA sort of journey, I think they'll start to join that. Even some of the smaller enterprises, as the technology is rolled out, it will become cheaper to use. So I think all industries will start to use that. I think potentially things like blockchain and things will start kicking in further down the line as well. In terms of new avenues, I've got to be honest, I'm not seeing that in our industry, but being in defence and sort of, we're usually a little bit behind the curve of everyone else. So I'm probably not the best to answer this question, in all honesty. But yeah, I think it's definitely a world where we'll see a lot more around robotics, automation, and as Nick touched on earlier, data warehousing and utilising other elements that are being used by other functions and bringing those into credit management a little more.
Yep, thank you. Nick, your thoughts in terms of the future?
I think we've highlighted a lot of it on this. I'm a great believer in workflows. I think we're going to see a lot more around workflows. Definitely APIs. Definitely, I think organizations like CRAs and collection software companies will talk to each other a lot more and try and come up with solutions that the credit management and the credit department wants. Leanne highlighted it before. Unless you get it at the touch of a button, it's no good to us. So I think we'll see a lot of developments in that area. Blockchain for sure, different ways of payment, faster ways of payment, managing credit limits in a much more what I call on the minute decision making. If you think about apps on the phones, if you're looking at SMEs, there's a whole load of stuff out there. And I said, I think right at the beginning, we're only just touching the iceberg. There's so much more out there. And I think, collaboratively with, people in the credit industry, credit managers, people who have been at the coalface, the CRAs, the software companies, if they're all talking together, we're going to see some phenomenal stuff in the next couple of years. I think the pandemic has made us realize what is possible. And it's exciting. It's exciting for me as a credit manager. It's exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's my question on hoping that we don't go backwards, because we've got a real chance to go even further forwards over the next 5 to 10 years. Guy, your thoughts in terms of future and technology and credit management? And sorry, Guy, you're on mute. There you go. It's always going to happen.
The most used in the last 8. It was always me, anyway. I was doing so well. The rate of change in technology is awe-inspiring. I mean, you turn around and so what's going to be the next big thing? I have absolutely no idea, because it hasn't happened yet, but it's probably going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we're at that sort of pace. But I think Nick's right. I think everybody talking to each other and integration and getting all of these feeds into one place, coming from all sorts of different ways. We're not tied to our desks because we've got laptops. We're not even tied to our laptops anymore because we've got tablets and we've got smartphones, which are far smarter than any of the computers that we started using when Nick and I joined the industry 150 years ago. It's staggering what we are capable of doing today and what will be available to do tomorrow. I mean, it's always going to be about getting more information, more accurately, more speedily into your hands. So as Sue said, so we can polish all of those diamonds and have a real glittering array of stuff to be able to share with our business, and that helps the business grow. So what it's going to be, I have no idea, but it's going to happen fast.
Yep, I second that. Brian, any thoughts?
In a very small way, not going to repeat what was said, but certainly collaboration between the CRAs and insurers will be very interesting to see, specifically in relation to credit scores and how they start to identify those zombie companies that we all deal with, that we've all got that are ticking along, and start to identifying and maybe segment the risk elements of customers, whether that's by scoring or whether it's by sector, is one way or the other. And the final point on that is, I'd love to see the courts come today with some technology as well, so we can speed up when we come back on board and we sue people, we can do it quicker.
Yeah, that might be quite a wish, that last one, Brian. we can always dream. Subu, last but no means least.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, what I'm seeing is immediately in the short term, it's actually people have started adopting adverse media as one of the way, because with the changing economic scenario, there's a lot of information on the local media and the international media. Try to use that into some of the decisioning process for your trading purposes and the credit management decision. But long term, yes, there is what can happen which we're not aware of, but blockchain is coming up way quicker, and the adoption and some of the innovative ideas that are happening around blockchain is quite mind-blowing. So hope so we will get to see some of those and surely help some of the challenges that the team is facing in accessing the data and making decision right. So that's what it looks like.
Excellent. And hopefully in say a year's time, when we come to the next conference of this, it may be in person, you never know, and we can see how many of these things actually stayed in play. So that's certainly our last question. I know that Colin is there in the background. I know you wanted to wrap up the day. Mr. White, if you can hear us.
Yeah. Can do if you want. Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll wrap up actually now, if that's all right, unless anybody else has got any last thoughts. But
one last thing for me, just to obviously thank all of the panelists on this session. The banter wasn't too bad either, so I didn't have to get involved. That was all right. So thank you all. Yeah,
brilliant. Excellent. Thanks, Ian. So yeah, really good, really interesting information there. Hope everybody out there has really enjoyed it. We'll wrap up because I just want to round up really by thanking the panelists in this session and all of today's sessions. Really good to hear from you all. And yeah, just wanted to say, hopefully everybody's taken a lot away from today. I certainly have. If anybody missed any of these sessions today, then you can obviously log back in a future date. Within 24 hours, we'll be putting these up for you to see. Hopefully you've enjoyed the sessions. I'd like to thank today's sponsors that you can see on screen, Aon, Begbie's Trainer, Interim and Cedar Rose for making this event possible. And of course, thanking Leanne, Nick, Brian, Guy and Subu for their insights in this session. Special thanks as well to Brendan Clarkson's not with us on this particular session, but he's ran two of the panels. So thanks to him. And of course, Ian Leslie for their help on these sessions as well today. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed it as much as I have. Moving forward, we've got a number of events that we're running across the year. Next on Wednesday the 14th of July, we've got a session talking about customer vulnerability and messaging and communication, which is a one-off, more in the consumer collection sector, but it might be relevant to some of the commercial guys tuned in today. So feel free to join us on that. The link is in your resources tab, which is on the left of your screen there. So it'd be great if you can join us for that. We've also got the online collections technology think tank on the 16th of September. And we're hoping to confirm details on that soon and speakers. So again, that's another one, a lending technology think tank in October. And also we run an event called the Credit and Collections Technology Awards, which are closing for entries at the moment. If anybody's got anything they want to put forward for that process, that'd be great. We're hoping, fingers crossed, with that particular event that we'll bring that as a face-to-face event in Midland Hotel in Manchester on the 4th of November, but no promises on that one, of course. But I'd like to round up and finalise this event by thanking everybody who's taken part today, has tuned in, given their insight. As I mentioned, we're going to put a write-up of the polls and the questions from this event online Thursday next week on the Credit Connect site. So I'd like to round up and say goodbye from everybody who's joined us today. And thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.